At 02:23 hours, 3 Ukrainian FP-1 drones crossed into Russian-monitored waters at 180 clicks per hour, heading for a Russian ship that had been strangling Ukraine's naval drone operations. The Russian spy ship sat 15 miles off Novorossiysk, its R381T arrays listening like a hawk on a fence post. For 6 weeks, it logged patterns of life and was days away from predicting strikes before they even launched. While the patrol had been relatively quiet so far, everything was about to go sideways in a matter of seconds. Unknown to the Russian spy ship, the Ukrainian drones skimmed 3 meters above the waves, heading straight their way. Their plywood construction gave them a radar cross-section smaller than a seagull, essentially invisible to systems designed to track aluminum birds. 20 minutes after launch, a Russian Forpost R reconnaissance drone appeared on the horizon, patrolling in its standard racetrack pattern 30 clicks off the Ukrainian coast. The Forpost's Canadian-made MX-15DI camera could spot a basketball at 5 kilometers away. Its thermal mode detected temperature differences of just 2 degrees Celsius. At 02:45, the lead FP-1's engine heat spiked on the Forpost display. 3 small contacts, low altitude, heading east at 180 clicks per hour. The Russian operators zoomed in trying to classify the targets. The pre-programmed evasion kicked in immediately. The drones dropped to 2 meters above the water, disappearing into what radar operators call ground clutter, the chaotic returns from waves that mask low-flying objects. But here's why wood matters. Within minutes, the plywood frames had cooled to match the sea temperature. To the Forpost thermal camera, they'd vanished like ghosts. The operator logged the contact as possible birds and continued his patrol, not knowing he'd just let through the vanguard of an attack. Behind the drones, the reason for their rushed launch became clear. Russian Shaheds had found their launch site, arriving just minutes after the FP-1s cleared the area. The operators barely escaped as 50-kilogram warheads turned their equipment into scrap metal. The spy ship's intelligence network was already working, but not fast enough to stop what was coming next. At 03:30 hours, as the FP-1s were crossing the Black Sea, 20 Ukrainian naval drones launched towards Sevastopol at 80 clicks per hour. What happened next would trick Russia into leaving their most valuable intelligence asset completely defenseless. The Decoy swarm was a mix of modified jet skis and cheap commercial boats fitted with basic guidance. Each cost less than 10 grand, throwaway assets designed to look exactly like Magura V5 naval drones on radar. They maintained formation, transmitted the right radio signatures, and moved at attack speed. To Russian radar operators watching their screens, this looked like the largest naval drone assault since October 2022. Creating a convincing decoy swarm requires more than just sending boats toward a target. The drones had to follow realistic attack patterns, spreading into assault formations, converging on likely targets, even performing evasive maneuvers. Ukrainian operators controlled them via satellite link for the first 50 kilometers, then switched them to autopilot. Each drone broadcast on frequencies known to be monitored by Russian intelligence. Some even carried heat sources to mimic the infrared signature of armed drones. The deception had to be perfect. The Russian admiral had 6 Ka-27PL helicopters at Novorossiysk, 4 at Sevastopol. These helicopters were the Black Sea Fleet's primary defense against naval drones. Ships are too slow to chase them. Fighter jets can't hover to search, but helicopters can cover 100 square clicks in 20 minutes, drop RGB-16 depth charges that neutralize everything within 50 meters, and use their dipping sonar to hunt underwater drones. Without them, Novorossiysk's sea approaches were defenseless. Russian doctrine demanded for 4 seconds every minute, they're both pointing away from the same dark corner. That corner was a 2-kilometer corridor the drones had to hit precisely. But the Russians had adapted. Random desynchronization eliminated predictable blind spots. The corridor was shrinking. The first drone entered at 04:47. 4 seconds invisible, 2 seconds visible, as one radar swept past, then invisible again. The radar operator saw a brief contact, something small moving fast. The second drone followed 30 seconds behind, still on course, still invisible, with full fuel tanks. But the third had developed a problem. A microscopic flaw in its autopilot gyroscope caused it to drift right, 200 meters off course and growing. At 04:48, Russian operators received their orders. Randomize rotation patterns. The third drone corrected hard north, burning precious fuel. It entered the collapsing corridor at 04:49. Both radars painted it clearly. Contact bearing 270, speed 180, altitude 50 meters. The operator reported 20 confirmed targets at Sevastopol versus 1 questionable blip. He marked it probable bird and returned to tracking the decoy attack. The third drone had made it through, but that maneuver burned 12 minutes of fuel. It would reach the target area with less than 60 seconds remaining. Meanwhile, the Russian spy ship maintained station 15 miles off Novorossiysk. Despite the decoy attack, its mission took priority. But the ship wasn't alone. 2 Project 03160 patrol boats maintained a protective screen circling at 5-kilometer radius around it, standard doctrine since losing the Moskva. The spy ship's radar could see threats the patrol boats couldn't, vectoring them like a quarterback calling plays. At 0500, the decoy fleet performed its final act. As the Russian helicopters closed to engagement range, the 20 drones scattered in different directions. Some beached themselves on empty coastline. Others circled in place until their fuel ran out. A few simply stopped moving. None attempted to reach actual targets. Their job was already done. The helicopters spent another hour hunting stragglers, burning fuel, wasting ammunition on drones that cost less than a single depth charge. By the time they headed home, they were 180 kilometers from Novorossiysk, and half their fuel was gone. The real attack was still coming. But visibility continued dropping as morning fog thickened. At 0600 hours, the lead FP-1 was now 240 kilometers from the target when its GPS position began sliding east. The drone wasn't turning. Water, warping radar beams upward like light bending through a magnifying glass. This wasn't weird for the Black Sea come September. Water holds its heat while morning air drops faster than the stock market on a bad Monday. That density gap creates what the geeks call an atmospheric lens. Radar jockeys train for this crap, but the correction math assumes vanilla conditions. This morning's inversion was mean, a 10-degree temperature spread across just 50 meters of altitude. The radar beams kicked upward at a 15-degree angle. What registered as 50 meters on the scope was actually 80 meters in the real world. Anything cruising below 30 meters was stone-cold invisible. The FP-1, skimming at 3 meters, might as well have been a damn submarine running silent. The lead drone closed in at 0732. The Russians were sweeping 50 meters altitude, but their beams were actually eyeballing 80 meters, so the drone slipped under like a ninja in the night. The patrol boat caught it visually at 500 meters. The lead drone's camera showed the patrol boat getting bigger, fast. 500 meters. Muzzle flash lit up like the 4th of July. 400 meters. The PKM's signature chatter ripped across the water, that rapid-fire staccato that sounds like an angry woodpecker on steroids. Tracers walked across the surface, painting lines of fire. 3 rounds punched through, clean holes through wood like a hot knife through butter. 1 round clipped the propeller. Signals intelligence team was also working. Every electronic device creates harmonics, ghost frequencies when circuits resonate. This is what they would exploit. At 0723, they found one. Bearing 285, 180 clicks per hour, 15 clicks out. The ship's radar locked on. The lead drone's primitive threat receiver registered the lock, but wood confuses radar designed for metal. The Mineral M's algorithms look for sharp returns from aluminum. Wood gives mushy, inconsistent returns. The radar kept losing lock. The operator reported intermittent contact, possibly birds. The third FP-1 made a decision its simple programming allowed. Detecting radar ahead, it shut down everything except its mechanical gyroscope, flying blind on compass heading alone. But running this electronic warfare system caused another problem. Its R934UM jammers protecting against naval drones were creating electromagnetic noise across multiple bands. The jammers operated at 20 to 1000 megahertz, right in the middle of the ship's communication frequencies. Every time they transmitted, they degraded their own radar returns. Russian doctrine called this electromagnetic fratricide, your own systems interfering with each other. A calculated risk, the manual said, and they were about to learn the true cost. At 0725, the ship threw a patrol boat at the intermittent contacts. The boat lit out at 35 knots, crew scrambling to man the forward PKM machine gun. The gunner slammed in a fresh 200-round belt, eyeballed the iron sights, and locked himself against the mount like he was riding a mechanical bull. His loader posted up with 2 more belts ready to rock. They'd run this drill hundreds of times. The drone's camera locked onto the bridge roof, where the mast held all 3 special antennas like a crown jewel. The 25-kilogram payload smashed into the mast base, traveling faster than bad news. The explosion gutted the bridge instantly, ripped it apart like a beer can in a trash compactor. The R381T arrays that could pick up a radio broadcast in Romania melted into slag hotter than hell's front porch. The computers holding 6 weeks of patterns turned into expensive paperweights. The mineral ME radar twisted into modern art that Salvador Dali would have been proud to sign. Secondary explosions ripped through the power supplies like a chain of firecrackers going off in a closet. The fires finally burned themselves out 18 hours later. The ship's electronic radar suite looked less like military hardware, more like abstract sculpture at a modern art museum. All melted circuits and twisted metal crying for mercy. 6 weeks of intelligence gathering, dozens of recorded launches, the patterns that would have ended Ukraine's drone war dead in its tracks, all gone up in smoke faster than a winning lottery ticket in a bonfire. The ship would sail again, sure, but its electronic eyes and ears were permanently fried, blind and deaf as a stone. Within hours, Ukrainian drones were launching from brand new sites with fresh patterns, invisible once again like they'd never been spotted at all. The Russians could still hammer launch sites, and the engine started shaking itself apart like a paint mixer. The tough bastard kept running. The drone cleared the boat's effective range. 90 seconds of fuel left in the tank. At 0733, the spy ship's distinctive mast popped into view 800 meters out. But that damaged propeller had cracked the engine mount worse than a broken promise. The patrol boat lit up the radio. Drone inbound bearing 285, damaged but still airborne and pissed. The bridge crew snatched up binoculars, scanning south where the boat was pointing like hunting dogs on a scent trail. Smart money would have been looking northwest instead. The third FP-1 had caught every green light. Flying on mechanical gyroscope alone, like some old-school barnstormer, it held course steady as a laser. It ghosted out of the morning haze at 0734, coming in from the port bow at 180 clicks per hour, now just 10 meters above the deck, low enough to taste the salt spray. The lead drone's engine finally threw in the towel at 0734, starting its final glide like a paper airplane running out of steam. But that lead drone had earned its paycheck. Every Russian eyeball was glued to watching it pancake into the drink, while the real nightmare closed in, unseen, like death on silent wings. The ship's navigation radar couldn't tilt down past -5 degrees. The designers never figured some crazy Ukrainian would come at them from below the horizon. The patrol boats were caught with their pants down, completely out of position. The bridge crew was eyeballing the wrong sector, like fans watching the wrong end of the field. But here's the kicker. Just like the Ukrainians leaned on visual fixes, so did the Russians. A Russian lookout finally spotted the third drone at 300 meters. Too damn late. The drone responding to the visible threat first. All 6 Novorossiysk helicopters launched west at 270 clicks per hour. The distinctive whomp, whomp of their rotors faded as they raced toward the decoys. Every minute they flew west was another minute the real drones flew east unopposed. By the time they realized the deception, they'd be 360 kilometers out of position. The spy ship, 15 miles off Novorossiysk, now had no air cover, no quick reaction force, no way to vector helicopters to investigate contacts. For the next 2 hours, any drone that got past the patrol boats would have a clear shot. The 3 FP-1s adjusted course 15 degrees north. This wasn't random. It exploited something the Ukrainians had discovered through months of observation. The Russians had 2 Podlet K1 radar stations covering this sector. Each radar rotated at exactly 10 revolutions per minute. Picture 2 searchlights spinning in circles. Reality was being rewritten. The Russians had activated their R330 ZHTO system from Crimea. This wasn't crude jamming. The system whispered lies, broadcasting fake GPS signals at 100 watts versus real satellites at 0.00001 watts. The Russians had perfected this trick and started walking drones toward the ground. Now, they were walking the FP-1 toward a Pantsir battery. But here's the thing. Ukrainian operators had learned, too. Every 50 kilometers, oil platforms dotted the Black Sea. The FP-1's primitive cameras could spot these from 5 clicks away, resetting position based on preloaded coordinates. No amount of spoofing can beat the old reliable Mark I Mod 1 eyeball. The second drone, however, never made it to the next platform. At 0615, its GPS receiver died, not from jamming, but from a junky Chinese capacitor that couldn't handle temperature cycling. Without GPS, it switched to inertial navigation. But INS over water accumulates 10 meters of error per minute. 8 kilometers off course meant it was heading for empty ocean, not the target area. At 0645, it hit the water. No explosion, just gone. 2 drones left. The third one, 5 kilometers behind, still had clean GPS, but not for long. The Russian ship went active. its mineral ME radar began painting the western approaches. The ships signaled up low-flying targets at 500 meters, walk tracers into the bogey, keep the hurt coming until splash. Standard playbook: investigate, ID the contact, smoke it if it's hostile. Problem was, they'd been briefed for aluminum birds with infrared signatures hot as a blowtorch. Nobody said jack about plywood phantoms that flew colder than a politician's heart. The lead drone was sucking fumes, 3 minutes of fuel tops. Behind it, the third drone kept hauling ass, invisible but flying deaf and blind. The morning fog had rolled in thick as pea soup, chopping visibility down to 500 meters max. At 0730, the lead FP-1 punched into the target zone 15 miles off Novorossiysk. The Russian spy ship sat right where intel said it would be, still playing traffic cop with patrol boats vectoring toward the incoming threat, like pieces on a chessboard. The spy ship had thrown up a radar fence, 2 patrol boats with overlapping positive ME1 coverage, locked together tighter than a vault door. Each radar swept 120 degrees, picking up targets as small as a damn frisbee at 15 clicks out. Classic Soviet playbook, banking on one thing: Mother Nature playing ball. But the Black Sea wasn't having it. A temperature inversion was cooking up, warm air sitting on cold water, and the engine started shaking itself apart like a paint mixer. The tough bastard kept running. The drone cleared the boat's effective range, 90 seconds of fuel left in the tank. At 0733, the spy ship's distinctive mast popped into view 800 meters out. But that damaged propeller had cracked the engine mount worse than a broken promise. The patrol boat lit up the radio. Drone inbound bearing 285, damaged but still airborne and pissed. The bridge crew snatched up binoculars, scanning south where the boat was pointing like hunting dogs on a scent trail. Smart money would have been looking northwest instead. The third FP-1 had caught every green light. Flying on mechanical gyroscope alone, like some old-school barnstormer, it held course steady as a laser. It ghosted out of the morning haze at 0734, coming in from the port bow at 180 clicks per hour, now just 10 meters above the deck, low enough to taste the salt spray. The lead drone's engine finally threw in the towel at 0734, starting its final glide like a paper airplane running out of steam. But that lead drone had earned its paycheck. Every Russian eyeball was glued to watching it pancake into the drink, while the real nightmare closed in, unseen, like death on silent wings. The ship's navigation radar couldn't tilt down past -5 degrees. The designers never figured some crazy Ukrainian would come at them from below the horizon. The patrol boats were caught with their pants down, completely out of position. The bridge crew was eyeballing the wrong sector, like fans watching the wrong end of the field. But here's the kicker. Just like the Ukrainians leaned on visual fixes, so did the Russians.